Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 230, and this is a show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to pick of the week. So let's get started. I kind of had a lighter week this week, which is why I am posting this on Wednesday, which is pretty early for me. Usually it's Thursday or Friday, the review. But let's get started. What was number 15? And I am so disappointed to see this low, but Hitgirl issue 1, this was in my most anticipated list for the week, and I love this cover, and I wish this was the art that was for the comic. I love that Mindy's eye is going through the logo. It's a great cover, but I did not like the interior artwork. I really thought the colors were way too bright here. It just was hard to focus on the artwork, and even just the pencils. Like here, it felt like the pencils are kind of sloppy at times, and it just wasn't the style I was expecting for this book. So, and also Mindy herself, I mean, I love her personality, but I just didn't really care for her finding a new sidekick, or at least the personalities of the other sidekicks. So, definitely I'll pick up more of this book, because I have all the Kick-Ass books, and I read all of Hitgirl as well, so I will continue to pick it up, but that does not mean I wasn't disappointed with this first issue. So, I'm going to give this one, I believe, 2.5 stars. Yes, 2.5 stars for Hitgirl, and that is number 15. Moving on to number 14, which is Superman issue 41. And this is the end, finally, of the Seahorse people storyline, and I just feel like this was a lot of padding, even though I will say there are some interesting themes, which is why it's not as low as it could be. I just feel that it still didn't really give anything new to the Superman mythos or to the Superman storylines, and I just feel like this was very much a filler before we get to Action Comics and the ending of this creative team's run. So Superman issue 41 for me, yes, has some interesting themes. It's a cool parallel to, or I will say interesting parallel to Krypton, but just didn't really do it for me. So Superman issue 41 gets 2.5 stars, but I will say I enjoyed the artwork for this one, even though the inking is still very dark, which is not my favorite aspect of the art for this book. Now moving on to number 13, which is Avengers issue 681. It's not my worst pick of the week, or at least favorite this week. Still not really loving this event, but I feel like there's a little bit more story here. I like that we learned about Voyager's past, we learned how she got her abilities, but I do feel like there's still too many players on the chessboard here, and that is the big weakness of this event. But we get an interesting ending, at least with Hulk returning, which we already knew that was going to happen, so it wasn't a surprise, but I am excited to see what they're going to end up doing with Hulk, and this was one of the reasons why I've been picking up the event. And also I really felt like the artwork was very solid. That's definitely been a stronger aspect of this event. So Avengers issue 681 gets 3 stars, and that is number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is The Brave and the Bold, Batman and Wonder Woman issue 1. Another book which was in my anticipated list that I was kind of disappointed with. And I won't say it's a bad book, because it is not a bad book. This is definitely goes down to personal preference. I really like the Wonder Woman stuff. I love Steve and Diana. I enjoyed their romantic storyline. I like that. Batman, I felt like could have been put in a little bit better. I feel like his storyline was kind of an afterthought, but the part I didn't really like, honestly, was the mythos aspect. I didn't really like the narration, and this is going, I believe, into Celtic mythos, so I like the idea of doing that, but it's just not for me. I really hated how, not hated, but I disliked how dense that wording was, and obviously it makes sense. That's usually what a mythology book would do. So again, it's more about personal preference here than it being a bad book. I will pick up the next issue, see where it goes, and I really love Liam Sharp's artwork, and it's cool to see him taking on writing duties, but I don't know if this book is going to be for me. But I'm hoping it might pick up a little bit more with the dialogue and just seeing Batman and Wonder Woman interacting, because Wonder Woman definitely was the best aspect of this, and the dialogue between her and Steve. And just, I want to show you some really great paneling here, though. I love the artwork. It's so great to see Liam Sharp back on Wonder Woman. Just like some beautiful background, which you need for a book that is based on mythology. So, giving this one 3 stars. Moving on to Number 11, this is a little lower than usual, but Regression issue 7, and mostly because this is just an exposition issue. If you wanted to learn more about the Regression world, you get it here, but I feel like, unlike Baby Teeth last week, if you watched Comic Uno episode last week, that was an exposition issue to explain the world, but the characters are still very much involved. Here I feel like the characters are kind of just standing around listening to information, and those are the exposition issues I don't really enjoy. So this was definitely a slower one for me. Still, the artwork is great for this book. I really like the style, I like the characters, but it was an exposition issue. So Regression issue 7 gets 3.5 stars. Definitely not bad, but it's kind of in the middle for me. So moving on to number 10, which is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 24. This is the prelude issue to Shattered Grid, which I am super excited for. They even have advertisement in the back. Really excited for this event. This issue, you do still have Jonah's Scarf on artwork, which I think his artwork has improved here. Still feels a little bit bulkier than I want, but, and especially there are some times where the helmets are off and it's just the humans, characters talking outside of costume. It feels a little stiff to me, especially the facial expressions, but when they're in their costumes and just doing the Power Ranger stuff, that's where I think the artwork is a bit stronger. But yeah, going into the story, it's very much a setup. I kind of wish we got a little bit more about them traveling the other dimensions and traveling the other Rangers in time, but this issue is just setting up of why Draken's bad and why the Rangers don't trust Grace anymore, and that's mostly the issue. So overall, I gave this one 3.5 stars. Definitely would have liked a little bit more of the actual Shattered Grid event, but I know they're obviously just saving that for the next issue. Alright, so moving on to number 9, which is the Defenders issue 10, which is the last issue of Defenders. The reason this is higher is because the artwork is gorgeous for this book. I love the art, great action, and I do like the paneling where people are talking about the Defenders. You got like Jessica Drew, Miles, obviously just fan favorites of Brian Michael Bendis because it is him leaving Marvel Comics. It is an okay issue. It's pretty much the Defenders going up against this group of Kingpins after they defeated Diamondback, and it's the aftermath of defeating Diamondback. Now the reason I feel like the story is not that strong is because there was never really a great focus for Defenders, the series, so that's why the ending is kind of underwhelming. But if you like these characters, if you like Brian Michael Bendis, I do think it's worth picking up because it does feel a little bit more like Brian Michael Bendis saying goodbye to his street-level heroes than an actual conclusion to this series. It's more of a conclusion to Bendis' career on these characters. So I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 9, which is Birthright, issue 30, and this one's a good one. This focuses a bit on Mikey more. I like the family a bit more than Mikey, which is weird to say because Mikey is the main character, but I like how the family's involved with Mikey's storyline here, where he is pretty much having a fight within himself to figure out if he teams up with Lore or if he doesn't. And it's an interesting battle within type of storyline. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 7, which is Injustice 2, issue 20. So this issue, I will say, has a slow start with the Zod stuff, and I was like, okay, so this is just going to be an action issue, but then really picks up with, I guess, the second chapter of the digital book, and that is when Batman saves Ted. Then we get a little bit more of the emotional stuff that we're used to with Injustice, more of the character-driven storyline, and then I really liked it. It was Harley and I believe it was Dr. Midnight that ended up helping Connor come back to life, and it's Batman tiptoeing on not telling Connor that Tim passed away. So I really liked the second half of the issue a bit more than the first half, and that gave us more emotions, and of course the artwork for this book is so great. So Injustice 2 issue 20 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 8, I believe. No, that was number 7. Moving on to number 6 though. And that is the Archies issue 5. I love this cover. It's Betty and Veronica on the what's her face? Tegan and Sarah. Knew it was Tegan. For some reason I forgot Sarah's name. But Tegan and Sarah's shirts, I thought that was cool. And this issue, it's more music drama, which I like. I don't like that this book is ending, because I do really like the Archies a lot. And the artwork from Joe Asma is great. Gets some really great emotions, and he does a good job at inputting the music in this static medium, which is important for a book about music. But anyways, yeah, this issue, I like the drama with Jughead, and, you know, that the Archies suck. Pretty much, they're not doing very well. So it's interesting drama. I don't know if this is my favorite issue. I think that the past issues have done better at integrating the guest star, but still enjoyed the drama and just seeing where the band goes. So the Archies issue 5 for me gets a solid 4 stars. So moving on to number 5, which is Batman issue 41, and the artwork for this book is just gorgeous. And 2 pages I really want to show is this page of just like headshot Poison Ivy, and then the double page spread of Poison Ivy saying, "I have everything." I'm going to show you that. Just a beautiful page here. The story itself is definitely, might be slower to some people, because it goes into definitely more of a poetic type issue, where Poison Ivy is controlling everyone except Selina and Batman, and they have to figure out, how is this happening? How can Poison Ivy control people with the green? And I thought that was an interesting concept of, like, how did she get all these powers? But at the same time, I'm like, I kind of wish we knew, because it feels like we are jumping into the story halfway through, and that is a positive and negative for me. I know it's obviously a writer's choice to do this, but I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing yet. But the artwork for this book is gorgeous, and I do like the poeticness of this issue. So I'm giving this one 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Fence in issue 4. I really enjoy this book. It's fun. If you like sports anime, this is exactly like a sports anime. And what I really liked about this issue especially, and really the past couple issues, is the way they encompass the ensemble cast, which is the team of Fence players, and still keeping the spotlight on Nicholas and Seijay. And it's still about their rivalry. It's still about them going up against each other, love-hating each other. So far hating, but you know they'll love each other in the end. They'll be friends. But it's building up that dynamic, but at the same time you still know about the other players, you still see their dynamic as well. You don't forget about that, and that really builds the world of this sports team very well, and what you want with a sports anime / sports comic book. So I gave this one a solid 4. I really feel like with every issue it just keeps getting better. So moving on to number 3, so glad to have this in my top 5, and that is Amazing Spider-Man issue 796. And if you want classic Spider-Man, read this, because you get a lot of classic players here. You got, you know, characters from the Daily Bugle, like Betty. You have Flash Thompson, Liz Allen, MJ and Peter. It's just such a nice throwback, but still keeping all the modern themes that have been going on with Spider-Man. And what I loved about this issue especially was MJ and Peter. They reconnect in the end. There's some awesome lines between them, and how MJ, during this battle, the Green Goblins come into Liz's experiment. MJ knows what she's doing. She's Peter's ex-girlfriend, so she knows how to deal with superhero stuff because of that, but also because she works for Tony Stark. So she utilizes both that, and she's not a damsel in distress ever. So I love that about MJ, and I'm glad we got to see that here in her, you know, thinking on her toes with this issue. And then, you know, it's just fun to see Flash and Spidey teaming up. You got, you know, Norman's storyline continuing. My only negative here was the artwork. I do think Imanen's artwork is a lot stronger. Facial expressions here were a little bland for me, especially, I don't know why. The character's lips kind of looked weird at times. Just some of the facial expressions here, so I feel like that could have been stronger, but really enjoyed the story and looking forward to where MJ and Peter goes. So, gonna give this one a solid 4, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is X-Men Gold, issue 22. Another book I'm really happy and excited that is in my top 5. And this was really good. I like the setup of why the X-Men get arrested pretty much. And I love Kitty's voice, as always, with this book. How she takes charge and then she realizes halfway, oh God, I made a mistake. And then, you know, she has these badass moments, putting her hand in the villain's head and saying, I could kill you. And the villain saying, no, you would never do that. And they know her. But even just the team dynamic, I like the beginning where everyone's pretending to be unconscious and they're playing possum and Kitty's talking in their mind because of Rachel. So I really like that opener. Just a really good issue. I thought it was a good setup for the upcoming story. And artwork, probably some of the best we've seen from this book. Very clean, good action, good facial expressions. So given X-Men Gold issue 22, 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed that one. Moving on to number 1. This was no doubt my number 1. I really enjoyed this book, and that is the Mighty Thor issue 704. Man, the emotions for this issue. Building up to issue 705, the death of Thor finale, or might be penultimate, but I believe it's finale and then the issue after is epilogue. But it could be penultimate and then finale. I'm not sure. But anyways, this issue has to do with Jane making the decision of being Thor one last time to help with the war. And I really love the transitions here. First, you get to see the war, which honestly is not as interesting, but you have to have it because it's like, this is what's going on now. This is where Jane is. And some of the dialogue is just so beautiful. I love the first 2 pages where we see Jane's mother die. And her first line saying, oh, you know, I never grew up religious, but, and I gotta read this line because I just really love it, where it says, find a God to believe in, Jane. Find one who's worthy of you, my beautiful daughter. I thought that was just such an interesting story about gods, but a different way to show spirituality. And that's really what this whole book is about. It's kind of Jane finding her place within the gods. And, you know, we have a scene of her ex-husband and her son dying. And then saying, why weren't you there, Thor? Like, why don't you believe in us? And it's just Jane's complicated relationship with religion / gods, and it makes obviously a lot of sense for a book that is about a god and her becoming a god to be Thor. So many great emotions, and the artwork by Doberman. I mean, you have obviously these action sequences which are just beautiful and inventive, but then you have these emotional beats where it's just, it takes it slow. And that's why I say these transitions are just so good for this book. So overall, and then obviously Jane making her last decision of saying, hey, I gotta do this. I gotta be Thor one last time. But then, you know, there's some dash of humor here too. We got, I forget the dog's name, but the dog is saying, oh, no one can have a hammer. He's like chasing the janitor down the hospital saying, no hammer, I will murder you. So you have some fun scenes like that in the issue, but it's just a really perfect balance. And for me, I gave this 5 stars. Really enjoyed this book. Definitely pick it up. Really great, I guess, I don't want to say prologue because this has been going on for a while, but I would say a prologue before her death. I just thought it was a beautiful story about Jane, whatever does end up happening to the character. So I gave this one 5 stars. Definitely go pick up The Mighty Thor. That's my pick of the week. And let me know in the comments below, what books did you enjoy this week? What did you pick up? And of course, next week I have another episode of Comic Uno episode. And this is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.